Welcome, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your host for the show, Dr. Lino Martinez. Oh, yeah. Welcome back, everybody, to the Little Less Fear podcast. I'd like to introduce Sara Webb. She's an author, inspirational speaker, and meditation healer, empowering seekers to go from stress to success. Her life mission is to inspire people to access the power within themselves by teaching pocket-sized meditation techniques to improve daily happiness so people can bring the best versions of themselves to their own lives. Welcome to the Little Less Fear podcast, Sara Webb. We finally meet in person. Or through Zoom, that is.
As in person as we can. Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. A pleasure. So this podcast, basically, I like to figure out what brought you to this incredible journey.
Ooh,
I know that's a loaded question.
Answer.
That's a loaded question. I know.
My mission is, as you mentioned, to teach people little portable, I call them pocket sized because you can kind of take them anywhere and pull them out anytime, techniques. And my vision for the world is that every single person will meditate.
That's incredible.
And I know,
that
I firmly believe that if everyone would meditate, we would not have the problems that we do. Deepak Chopra says that if we would just teach every 8-year-old to meditate, we would achieve world peace in 1 generation.
Oof, I believe it.
I absolutely believe it. When we meditate, we access brainwave states that we have not accessed since childhood in a waking state. When we are growing up and before the development of our prefrontal cortex, we're in lower level brainwave frequencies, and that's when our core beliefs are instilled. Mm-hmm. And unless we're sleeping, we don't access these brainwave states. But 99.96% of everything that's being processed by our brain and our bodies is actually coming into our subconscious. We're only conscious of about 0.04% of reality. I'll give you some statistics to back that up. So at every single moment, whether you're in the middle of a church or if you're on top of a mountain or in a busy city or in your car alone, you've got available to your brain and your body billions of bits of data with a B. And the human brain processes around 11 million bits of that data per second.
Wow.
However, and that sounds pretty impressive, the rub is that we're only conscious of about 45. So between 40 and 50 bits per second out of the 11 million bits per second that are hitting our brains and our bodies.
So we're on autopilot most of the time.
Well, yeah. And we're also experiencing these things through our senses. Of course, most of us have 5 senses and 11 million sensory receptors in our bodies. But 10 million out of the 11 million sensory receptors are directly connected to our sight.
Oh, what?
So if you want to access the 99.96% of information that's being processed by your subconscious, then you just shut off your access to 10 million out of your 11 million sensory receptors by closing your eyes and go inside. It's turning that vision inward, looking within. We are so apt to dissociate and distract, especially when we experience negative emotion, especially when we don't know what to do. We pick up the phone, we pick up a drink, we turn on a screen, we call someone, we start eating, we turn to whatever our vice might be.
Yeah, we've got an iPad here, we've got our phone here, and then we've got our cats over here, and it's like, wow, yeah.
But when we turn our vision inward and start looking at ourselves and not necessarily analyzing, but just becoming still, it's like tell most of my clients, we tell our bodies what to do all day long, right? Drive the car, wash the dishes, pick up the kids, go to sleep, get up, walk over here. But our bodies have this 99.96% of information. So if we can just get quiet and listen to the wisdom of our bodies, then our subconscious can actually bubble up. And I'll give you an easy way to think about this. And I won't go into all the brainwaves, but normally we're in beta brainwaves. And when we're stressed, we're in high beta brainwaves. It's not a nice place to be on our nervous system. As we begin the first stages of sleep, and also most meditation, we go into alpha brainwaves. And then below that is theta brainwaves. That's where a lot of deep healing, a lot of DNA repair takes place. The only time that we go into theta when we're actually awake and ambulatory is when we're doing something that our subconscious mind has already memorized, like driving or washing dishes or taking a shower, or maybe you have an organizing technique or like to work on wood or sand a boat or anything that's really rote and automatic. Our bodies automatically take over and our brains slip into theta. So sometimes when people are stressed, they really like to drive, or they really like to go do that thing that they just know how to do. And you might even recognize, oh yeah, sometimes when I'm in the shower, I have the best ideas.
I've heard that from so many people. Yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah, so it bubbles up. But our eyes are open during this time. So if that's true for you, or anybody that's listening, if that's true for you, think about how powerful it would be if you just closed your eyes.
Wow.
And focused on your body. I mean, oftentimes when we're experiencing some sort of a stressful moment, and this is what I work with my individual clients on, if we can just sit down and ask the body, okay, where am I feeling this right now? Because we were talking about the chakras before we hit record. Yeah. A lot of times this will be a vibrational pattern somewhere in our bodies that's showing up. And I know a lot of people say chakras, okay, that's some woo-woo stuff. But actually, each individual chakra is associated with a part of our endocrine system, our glands, which produce hormones.
Stress hormones.
Each one, well, stress hormones and also just regular hormones. And so your thyroid in your throat, or your hypothalamus in your brain, or your thymus in your heart, these are all incredibly important ductless glands that if we can just listen and say, okay, I'm experiencing this thing in my body. What's going on? Let me just breathe into this area. And by directing the breath there, of course, we don't have a literal way to actually breathe into that area, but it's putting awareness into that area and basically listening to our bodies say, okay, what do you have to tell me?
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's incredible. I like how you said that. Breathe into that area. Give awareness to that part of your body.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a common meditation technique. And the thing about meditation, I'm so passionate about meditation. And the reason why I love it so much is because it is so accessible. And for the most part, it's free. It's a natural way to reset our nervous system. And our nervous systems used to not be as taxed as they are today in modern society. You know, I think that for me personally, I came to meditation because I wanted less stress. And I was always, from a teenager into my 20s, into my early 30s, until I found meditation, trying to be positive. I was reading self-help books. I had a natural cynicism to myself. And it wasn't until I started meditating that I was able to just naturally find the silver lining. It was like detaching from myself and just paying attention to my inner self and not being so focused on the outer world allowed me to naturally have this disposition that just seemed more alive, more awake, more positive. And as humans, I think that, a lot of people, maybe people like to be cynical. I don't know. I've talked to some people like that. They like their cynicism. They're very attached to it. It's the way they grew up. But it's not serving us. Here's the thing, though. It's not our faults.
That's
it's ancient physiology, right? This is part of our Homo sapien makeup.
Yeah.
We've carried over this ancient physiology of how to process stress just by continuing to be human. It's been passed down. And so we go into this fight or flight when the sympathetic nervous system is activated. And that's because we used to actually have to fight a tribesperson or flee from some sort of animal, a jaguar, a saber-toothed tiger.
Right.
And now our fight or flight gets triggered with our boss and our spouse and our kids and deadlines and traffic and all of these things that don't allow us to actually reset our nervous system. And I believe firmly that meditation is modern day mainstream magic.
Oh, I agree. Totally.
Because magic is an illusion, right? And it's something that we create ourselves. If we can just get rid of this illusion that we're looking at and go inside of ourselves, we can cultivate our own little bits of magic in small increments just by establishing a regular meditation practice. And I think so many people are so afraid of meditating.
Yeah, I recently heard a friend, recently, it was last night, and she was telling me that she feels she doesn't have enough time to meditate. But I was like, just 5 minutes a day is really all you need at least to start. And she was like, yeah, I like that idea, because I guess she was feeling pressured that she had to give herself 30 minutes or 40 minutes and have that intense quiet time. But from my experience, at least, I meditate 3 or 4 times a day, but even small little increments, as you were saying in the beginning, small little increments is basically the stepping stone to get you to where you want to be.
Absolutely. It's about establishing the habit, the practice.
Yes.
And start small. Absolutely. Start with 2 minutes or 3 minutes.
Right.
Even if we only sit in meditation for 60 or 120 seconds, even if our thoughts are racing, even if our body is yelling and saying, I don't want to do this, just being awake, sitting down, and going inward for even that small amount of time and just making the habit, making the practice, it grows. It's just like, I used to see in the gym these trainers, and they would be like pounding these 50, 60-year-olds, 40-year-olds who clearly have never worked out, and they're January 5th trying to get fit.
Yeah.
And that is not the way to get a client.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to start small and incremental and not say, okay, you've got to throw out your entire diet, change everything. There's a great book, James Clear's Atomic Habits. He talks about how to just, instead of saying like, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to work out for an hour and a half or even 45 minutes, just commit to lacing up your shoes and driving to the gym and walking inside.
Right.
Small little changes.
Yeah,
right?
Baby steps always.
Exactly. So yeah, just establishing the habit, the practice. And I think, people are so afraid, like you say, that they feel like they don't have time. They feel like they don't know how to do it. They feel like they're doing it wrong. They feel like they should be having some sort of this like transcendent experience and levitating and having the angels come down and say, oh, you are blessed, my child. But it's so much simpler than that. And sometimes simple is hard, right?
Yes,
sometimes
absolutely.
the simple things are super, super hard. It's just about making the time for ourselves and making it a practice, because it's not a meditation performance.
Right.
It's not meditation perfection. It's just a practice. So I think that that's the important thing. And that's why I just try to tell people, let go of expectation. First of all, find the kind that works for you, because there's thousands of different kinds of meditation. Mm-hmm. And then keep at it. Mm-hmm. Make it consistent, because that's the key.
What's the biggest challenge that you face with your clients in regards to meditation? What's the biggest thing that comes around that you hear quite often?
I would say expectation of what it's supposed to be like. I hear a lot from people who don't end up becoming my clients that time is a big barrier.
Yeah, I hear that too.
Well, I try to not be quite so sassy, but there might be some sass that comes out when I respond to that, because we make decisions every day as to what to do with our time. And it's just about deciding that you're going to do it. I mean, every single person on this planet has a handful or perhaps even dozens of things that they do every single day.
Oh yeah.
Without fail. They put on a pair of fuzzy slippers. They call a certain person. They drink coffee. They put a cream on their face.
Right.
We have all these habits that no matter what, I'm going to floss my teeth. No matter what, I'm going to call my mom. No matter what, whatever it is. And so really that time barrier is an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
It is a choice of to spend your time doing something else. I mean, how many minutes do we spend scrolling social media? If you have an iPhone or probably other phones, it'll tell you exactly how many minutes you're spending. And so could we carve out 8 minutes and separate it into 4 minutes in the morning and 4 minutes at night? And there's two really great times, and I talk about this on my social media. There are two really wonderful times to meditate because we can capture the hypnagogic and hypnopompic brain states that are already naturally occurring.
What is that?
In the morning, when you first wake up, you're in a hypnagogic state. So anything that comes in is going to be taken in as fact, because that trap door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is really thin.
Oh, wow.
And same thing happens at night. It's a hypnopompic state, and that trapdoor is very, very thin. And this is a great time. Both these times are really wonderful times to meditate and manifest and focus on what you're grateful for in the morning, or some affirmations that you want to implant. So you cannot tell me that you don't have 4 minutes right after you wake up and before you look at your phone, and 4 minutes after you put down your phone and go to sleep, to not give your body what it needs and try to manifest your own life, or even just think about the good things that happened during your day.
Be grateful. Practice the gratitude.
Yeah, gratitude is really powerful. And I'm an inspirational speaker too. And one of my many talks that I give are to magnify your life, MAG, magnify your life with meditation, affirmations, and gratitude. And for a longer talk, I do, make your life into a game with gratitude, affirmations, meditation, and exercise. And that fourth one, exercise, if we can leverage exercise, that's a really wonderful time. I always tell my clients and anybody that I talk to from a stage, sit down sweaty. If you can get out that kinetic energy,
right,
and then sit down, put a towel down if you're super sweaty. Go do it on an outside chair. Sit down sweaty, because your meditations will be so much better after you get out all that kinetic energy.
I'm going to have to try that today when we're done talking.
That's right. I did it today myself, and it was magical.
Oh, is that why? Because I notice when I work out at home, but when I'm doing my free weights, that's usually when when my energy's pumping, that's actually when I start to receive messages and I feel in a meditative state. Is that the reason why? Because I'm in this hypnotic state at that point?
Yeah, I mean, working out is definitely meditative. And there are lots of things that we do that are meditative, like driving a car, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? Right? That's because you are going into those meditative brainwave states. However, with our eyes open, again, we are still taking in a lot of information. So if I'm still a member of a Toastmasters group that I've been a member of for 7, almost 8 years.
Wow.
And if I don't know if you're familiar with Toastmasters.
Yeah,
but if I'm given so like certain jobs, I close my eyes and I don't look at what they're doing so that I can hear if I'm the counter or if I'm the grammarian, because with our eyes open, 10 million of our 11 million sensory receptors are being utilized. So yes, meditation, like somebody said, my meditation is when I'm driving in the car and singing, or my meditation is when I'm on the punching bag. And yes, those are meditative things, but they are not meditation. That
Right.
only occurs when we're sitting up, not laying down. I mean, some people like to lay down, but our bodies typically sleep when we're laying down. So it's really best to not have our head resting and to instead be sitting up in a place that we don't sleep in.
Oh, yeah, good idea. So, Sarah, what do you tell your clients when, and I'm assuming that some ask, what should I be looking for when they've been meditating for a few minutes? What are they feeling for? I mean, have you had that question? What are they waiting
That's a
for?
great question. No, I haven't had that question in a long time. And the answer is let go of that. Let go of that expectation. I think that a lot of people are expecting something to happen or expecting themselves to feel a certain way, but it's just about being present. And I know that sounds super far-fetched. It sounds incredibly esoteric
Mhm.
because let's face it, we live our lives in the future or in the past. Said
Is-
another way, we live our lives anxious or depressed.
Right.
It's not a way to live. And so if we can harness the present moment, we can actually bring that mindfulness is what they call it. But really, I am a little bit of a different thinker, and I posit that it's more mindlessness. Because when we are so in our mind, then we're in the future and the past. But if we can just be mindless and just, it's like that great Chinese proverb, stop trying to push the river.
Right.
I saw this meme of this guy with a mop, like a janitor's mop, and he's at the ocean, trying to control, like, this is not, if we can just lean into the flow, right? And just allow life to, oh, isn't that interesting? Approach it with some curiosity. So when you're in those meditative moments and trying to meditate, if you're like me, and trust me, it was a long time before I found the kind of meditation that worked for me, because I would go to these classes and I would do Deepak Chopra, and they would say, just imagine that your thoughts are floating by on a river. And my mind is like, where's the river and what kind of a river and where's the bank and where's it going? And is there a bird and what's the tree looking like? I can't see
Right.
so it's a really good, if your brain is like that and you feel like you can't shut it off, use an artifice, a mantra, paying attention to your breath. And that mantra can be some sort of a foreign language. It can be an English word. Of course, each energy center has a different sound.
What?
I
Each
sometimes
energy center
use,
has a different sound?
yeah, each of our energy centers has a sound, a color, a frequency, a hertz vibration. There's all kinds. I mean, yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah,
goes very,
I
very
knew
deep.
about the colors and the vibration, but sound itself, I guess that makes sense. It's all a vibration. That's amazing.
So yeah, there's like a ram or vam, or an is this one up
Oh,
here.
it's the
And then if
crown,
you want
huh?
to add like namaha just means reverence. So
Wow.
if you just want to go om namaha, om namaha, om namaha over and over again in your head, it's just reverence to om is supposed to be the sound of the earth. Or if that sounds really strange, then forget that and do something like gratitude, or I am whole and complete, or I am right here, right now. Anything that your mind wants to latch onto will help us to remain in this moment. And I can almost guarantee that eventually, over time, if done consistently, you will all of a sudden reach that kind of suspension of thought. I
Yeah.
remember the first time it happened to me. I had been meditating for maybe 6 months, and I noticed something happening, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening. And I, of course, immediately like snapped out of it, because I was trying to control it.
Yeah.
But it's just about that. It's that balance of trying. And so you've got this mantra, or you're paying attention to your breath, or your belly breathing, or you're suspending your breath. There's a certain kind of breath where we can pay attention to the space in between our breaths. Osho,
Wow.
the famous Osho. And this really refines our breath to a different level. It almost makes us pause a little bit more, or breath suspension. I practice Kundalini yoga, and that works a lot with the
Mhm.
suspension of the breath. And for anybody who's chronically stressed, I always teach box breathing
Yeah.
initially. It's a really great tool. Have you ever done box breathing?
I have. It's amazing. Yeah, it's great. You get to visualize it and go with it.
Yeah. And if you're stressed, you can sit down with box breathing, or just in the grocery store with box breathing, or be driving with box breathing, because when we suspend the breath, it makes especially when we suspend the breath when we're not stressed, it makes our nervous system practice being stressed and know that we are safe. Because when we feel like we don't have any oxygen, when we hold it empty, or when we feel like we're not going to breathe, be able to let it out, when we hold it full, it's a stress for our nervous system, but we know that we're safe. So
Right.
box breathing is once you learn belly breathing, then box breathing is a really wonderful tool. I advocate for whatever kind of breath work, whatever kind of meditation works for you. I practice transcendental meditation. That also sounds very weird and esoteric. I learned 6.5 years ago, and it's what worked for me. It costs money. You have to go to a teacher. You have to go to a 4-day course, 2 hours each. But I don't know if it was because I spent $1,000 on it and I had a teacher, I had a resource that made me, I was like, I spent this money. I'm going to sit down. Of course, I paid over 3 months. It wasn't like I just had, but I was dedicated, and it made me really committed to practicing for 20 minutes twice a day. And it started changing my life. My now ex-husband said, you're different. What's your teacher's name? I'm going to go learn, because
Wow.
I was pregnant when I learned. 5 months pregnant, 3rd trimester, your emotions are all over the place. And I was able to respond instead of react, just
Nice.
by 20 minutes twice a day, dedicating
Wow.
time to myself to reset my nervous system.
That's incredible. Thanks for sharing. You know what? When you were talking about your journey, about when you first had that like aha moment, I remember when I first had the moment, it came, and it still comes in the form of body chills. When I get into and when I'm seated in the right position with the spinal cord just completely aligned, aligning my chakras, I take some deep breaths, and I get chills all over my body. And that happens every time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of like when there's a temperature change. That's the type of chills I get in
Yes.
time. And that's when I know that I'm connected. And another thing
Yeah,
that
that's
helps me connect.
confirmation.
Yeah, totally. Another
Confirmation
thing that,
chills. Mhm.
yeah, I like that, confirmation chills.
That's what I call them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, the angels are talking to me right now. Okay. I'm on the
You've
right
had the
path.
chills
Yeah.
before too?
Oh, yeah. I mean, not while I'm meditating necessarily, but that's confirmation chills in my book. When that
Yeah.
happens to me, when I'm talking to somebody or having an experience or have a thought, and I get those chills, I know that that is something that's a deep truth for me
It is.
at this
It
time in
is
my
for me
life.
too. And I also find that definitely going into the state of gratification, gratitude, being grateful for
Yes.
everything, that's usually when I'm most calm, and that's when I feel
Mm.
most meditative. So I know that gratitude always gets me right in there.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, gratitude is the state of being thankful for something that's already happened. And so, if we can, like you say, and I talk about this all the time, if we can be grateful for those moments when we want to contract, right? Because life is a series of expansions and contractions. And I have a whole talk on this when I do my speeches. You look at weather patterns, the tides, our heartbeats, our lungs, everything is expanding and contracting. And if we didn't have the weather patterns, the tides, the
Right.
expansions and contractions of our hearts and lungs, we would not be anymore. If the earth weren't spinning, we would be
We
toast,
need this ebb
right?
and flow. Right.
Exactly. So it's the expansion that feels great. And it's the contraction where we need to lean in and say, okay, not I'm so ticked off about this, or this is, why is this happening to me? Or why did I do that? Or why is she doing that? Or it's okay, what am I being shown here? What's the challenge here? It's such a paradox because we are constantly learning and growing and taking tests and quizzes our whole lives. And at some point, it's like we don't want to be challenged
Right.
anymore. But it's through our challenges that we grow. It's why they say smooth seas don't make for strong sailors. It's why we work out in the gym, literally ripping our muscles open. And what happens after they rip open? We take care of them. We give them the right nutrients, and then they heal and they grow.
Yeah.
And if we can just see these challenges as opportunities to grow, which, hey, I'm no saint. I am learning this every day. And it's like, spiritual growth, personal growth is like an onion, but the onion keeps on getting bigger. It's like every time I level up, it's like Tetris. You're like, oh my gosh, it's coming so fast. Apparently, you're getting to this higher level and you feel like I can't handle this. And then you do, and you grow. And it's just an amazing daily miracle. So
It is. Thank you. Sara, tell us about your book that just came out. Tell us.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited. Look, LUSH is a collection of original poetry. It's 55 poems.
Nice.
I know we didn't really get into it very much, but I am gay. I came out of the closet and got sober and got a divorce in 2019. And then this year of 2022, I healed from deep sexual trauma that I experienced 14 years ago. I was raped by 8 men, very brutally, and I'm lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful. Talk about gratitude. I'm so grateful for that experience. So the beautiful transition that I had into myself is all a result of meditation. When I started meditating, it opened up that space for me to be able to see my habits and to see what I was doing.
Sure.
And so I started changing my relationship with alcohol shortly after I started meditating, but it took me a little while to actually completely rid alcohol from my life. And as we record this, tomorrow I will be 1,000 days sober off of alcohol.
Wow, congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And it has completely liberated me. As I began to get sober, at that time, I was married to a man, and I realized as I tried to change my relationship with alcohol that I was depending on alcohol in order to be intimate with my now ex-husband. So I told him I wanted a divorce and moved out and continued to get sober and went through the divorce process. And after I really was stable in my sobriety, I started doing some hypnotherapy work with the interpersonal hypnotherapists here in Florida, and realized that I have a lot of sexual trauma and did a lot of deep healing work around. Basically, I relived these experiences and I forgave every single one of them. And I am a free woman in so many ways because I don't have to live with that anger. I don't have to live with resentment. Because it's like they say, anger is like drinking poison and expecting somebody else to die.
Yeah, I was listening to, actually, it's interesting you bring it up this way, because I was listening to one of Abraham Hicks's episode earlier this week, and she was saying, look, everyone's got trauma, and if you don't forgive it, you're going to have to relive it and learn the lesson again. She goes, there's a lesson in everything. I was like, wow, I didn't think of it that way. And she says, you have to forgive even the ones that have caused you trauma. And she was
especially
adamant about it.
Yes, especially the ones, because, well, and it depends on what you believe, but it doesn't matter if you believe in God with a lowercase g or a capital G or source or unified field of all possibility, but we're all one. I mean, every single atom, whether it's the one in this microphone or the one in the stars or the one inside of our hearts, they are all the same, and they are all composed of 99.9999999% possibility.
Yeah.
So we vibrationally attract to ourselves the things that we need to heal. That's the way our subconscious brain works. I suppressed that deep trauma until a time when my subconscious brain said, okay, it's time for you to look at this. You're equipped now to look at this. And that's our ancient physiology too. It's like when we were out as hunters and gatherers, if we ate a red berry that tasted funny and then gave us GI issues, we're going to suppress that information until a later time when we see another similar red berry and we think, oh, that's right. That was a traumatic event for me. I am not going to eat this berry. And that's how trauma works. That's why we get triggered in moments and respond in similar ways as to the original trauma.
Wow, that's amazing. What an amazing person you are. What an amazing human, Sarah.
I am so blessed to know you.
I'm
I
blessed
feel
to know
the
you.
exact
Thanks so
same
much.
way.
It's
I feel the
incredible.
exact same way.
How can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners find you and your incredible program?
Oh, you're so kind. I am very active on Instagram, and you can also find me on my website. The handle or the link is one and the same. I am at Sara Webb Says. That's SarawEbbSays on Instagram. And my website is the same, SaraWebbSays.com.
Sara Webb Says, everybody, with their incredible book, Look Lush. And oh, yeah, where can we find your book?
You can find it on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, and you can find it through my publisher, Balboa Press, which is a division of Hay House. The cheapest way you can get it is on barnesandnoble.com. It's about $3 for the digital download. On Amazon, it's $4, as well as on Balboa Press, $4. And the list price is $9. So there's a lot of people that are trying to resell it for much higher prices. Don't be fooled, because right now it's just at this moment, it's on pre-order on Amazon. But yeah, Look Lush. You can read it in less than an hour. And it does have some more sultry poems in there. I do kind of like to give a warning because I was coming out of the closet, people. You know?
Sara Webb, everybody, on A Little Less Fear podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Follow us if you can, when you can, please. At Sara Webb Says on Instagram. That is her handle. Pick up her incredible book, Look Lush. Everybody, thanks so much for your love and your support, and we'll talk to you next time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to A Little Less Fear podcast. For more information on my social media pages, you can visit me at www.alittlelessfear.com. I also have an incredible list of resources for people all over the world, and it's really formulated to help all kinds of people: LGBTQIA community, Alcoholics Anonymous, disabilities. The list goes on. So feel free to visit my website, alittlelessfear.com. You can also email me at alittlelessfear@gmail.com. I'm also on Patreon. I'm a life purpose counselor on Patreon. This is available for everybody, and it's also available for only exclusive members on Patreon. Everybody's welcome. So please visit me there at www.patreon.com/alittlelessfear. Thank you to all the new followers and subscribers. Go ahead and hit the follow, subscribe button if you haven't already, and tell your friends and family about A Little Less Fear podcast. Thanks so much for all your support. Love you all. Have a blessed day.